Hey, good morning and welcome to McKenzie Mountain. It is the 27th of June. I told you yesterday I was going to go get some sheetrock and from a fella up at Wauconda Pass, where it was about half price the sheetrock was. And so I made arrangements to go there. I wanted to go because it was Wauconda Ranch, which is a really cool place. It's for sale. It has been for as long as I've been here. Wauconda Ranch. They want $5 million for it. It's both sides of the road. I don't know. I can't remember right now the exact acreage, but I think it's 650 or 750 acres of property, cattle ranch up there, and it's been for sale all the time that we've lived here. 2 houses, lots and lots of barns and outbuildings and so forth on the property. And then I saw they had this sheetrock for sale, so we made that trip up there. I made that trip up to get it. And met with, his name is Boyd and Megan. Boyd actually grew up on that property. He and his dad built all of that buildings on the property. Most of the buildings were built by wood that they had fallen off of their property and then hand milled on their own mills there on the property to make the houses and all the barns and so forth. He grew up there. And then he went into the Army and went to college to get trained as a diesel mechanic after that, and worked as a diesel mechanic in Okanagan, which is an hour away from Wauconda Valley, Wauconda Ranch. And so he had done that for a lot of years. And when his dad retired, he was going to take over the farm and just work the farm, which he did for a number of years. He said that 2 things have driven him out, so that he's actually relocating. And has relocated to Oklahoma, to Shawnee, Oklahoma. One of them was the politics in Washington State. Just makes it very, very hard for small businesses and for farms in our state. And then number 2 was the elk. And elk were introduced. They're not natural up here, and they were recently introduced within I don't know how many years, within the last couple of decades. And they seem to congregate on Wauconda Ranch. My wife and I were stuck one night as they were crossing the road. Wauconda Ranch takes both sides of the road of Highway 20 there, and so we were coming home one night from when I was preaching in Brewster, and I don't know, it was about 50 head of elk crossed the road. We just had to stop and wait for them because they don't wait for you. And so anyway, he said what happens is that the elk are so hard on the ground and on the fences and and on the pasture that it just makes it hard for the cattle to compete. So he moved his whole operation, cattle and everything and all that, to Shawnee, Oklahoma, and has gone down there to work there. He is getting ready to sell the Wauconda Ranch. He's has had it on the market for 2 years, I think, 2.5 years, at $5 million. And so at this point, they're going with no takers. And so at this point, he said they're going to start breaking it up into pieces. And there will be, a small portion. He said I could have any little piece that I wanted, but I told him he couldn't cut off a piece small enough that I could afford it. So anyway, he's divided up. There's his dad's house, the one that he grew up in, is on one side of the highway, and then he built one on the other side of the highway that looks really a lot like a lodge. I guess his dad's house is the smaller of the 2, and then his house on the other side of the road looks very much sits up on a hill. Looks very much like it'd make a great lodge or retreat center or campground, a camping area, hunting lodge, that kind of thing. But it's very remote up there. You're way out of the way to get to Republic and Tonasket and Wauconda. You're way out of the way anyway. And then when you get up to Wauconda Ranch and the pass, because they are right next to the pass, you're up there a pretty good distance. But it's a beautiful, beautiful piece of property. I thought it was interesting. I was just talking to him and visiting with him because I'd lived in Choctaw, which is real close to Shawnee. We lived in Choctaw for a couple years, so we talked about that a little bit. And then I told him that I had been to Custer's battlefield and to Gary Owen. We had stayed at a campground in Gary Owen. And it turns out he actually, when he was in the Army, he was in the 7th Cavalry, and his unit was called Gary Owen, named that after Custer's battle. And so he'd actually been to Gary Owen and all of that just as an interest because of, being in the Army in that area. Had kind of an embarrassing situation yesterday. my wife, maybe a month ago or so, was going to town, and she noticed that out of one of the manholes at the bottom of McKenzie Mountain, there was water bubbling out of the ground. And so she stopped into the city hall, and she told Robin down there about it, and said, I don't know what's going on, but it sure doesn't look like it ought to be happening. And so Robin reported and called, while my wife was still there, called Todd, and who's the public works director, and they got started on figuring out what to do. And so for the last, I think, a month or so, they've been working on it. It's been a process to get it to where they could deal with this thing. I didn't know what the problem was. I just knew there was a problem down there. And I saw where they had dug a trench to divert this bubbling water out one place. And then they had dug up a second manhole just a little farther down the hill. They dug it up. And then a little bit later, they dug a bigger hole. And then they just kind of blocked it off. And it sat there for a couple of weeks. And just working on here and there, I guess. I had never actually personally seen anyone working. All I'd ever seen is the hole that they dug and the evidence of their work. There's an excavator there, and then there's roadblocks there, and then there's a hole in the ground there, and all that kind of stuff is all I've seen. I've not even seen anybody. So yesterday, Anita takes off to go to the ladies' retreat that she's at. I'm going to go up to Wauconda Ranch and get that drywall. And so I thought before I leave, we're living in an RV. About once a week, you've got to empty the black tank, and you wait until it's full. It starts to kind of burp, when it's getting full, and it's about the time to flush it. You don't want to flush it all the time. You want to flush it when it's full so that it's able to wash out the solids good. And then after you flush it, you dump it, then you have to wash and flush it to get out all the residual solids and all that. So here's what I thought I was going to do. I thought, what I'll do is I'll just dump that, open that valve and let the black tank dump while I'm going to Wauconda and back, and then I'll flush it when I get back. And so I pull the valve, get in the pickup, I take off down the hill. The bottom of the hill on our driveway, we've got a gate down there. And so I had to get out of my pickup to open that gate. And there's guys working it. Todd and his crew are down there working in that hole. First time I've seen anyone working in it. So I just thought I'd be friendly. And, so I walked up and said, hey, thank you for all you guys do. And Todd looked at me and said, well, then thank you for dumping your holding tank at just the wrong time. I had no clue they were in the hole. I had no clue what the hole was about. I didn't know what was going on. But apparently when I dumped that 40-gallon black tank, it all ended up in the hole that they were in. Oh my goodness, I'm embarrassed. I got home from getting the drywall and got up to the house. And, I've got to open and close that gate, and they're down there working and stuff like that. And realized I'd forgotten to go to the mailbox, but I was embarrassed enough. I didn't want to face them again. So I waited until after they were off work to go to the post office and get mail. A dirty story, huh? It turns out Todd, my son Caleb, works with Todd a lot, director of the Public Works. And so Todd, and who knows me, sent my son Caleb a picture of the mess that I had made of them. Oh boy. You all have a good day. The Lord bless you and keep you and make his face to shine upon you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Have a good day.